The belief in the existence of an afterlife, as well as manifestations of the spirits of the dead, is widespread and dates back to the pre-literate cultures. It's believed that ghosts are usually tied to the location of their death, often a sudden or tragic one, and most likely aren't aware of their passing. There are other cases where a spirit would attach themselves to a living person, or a whole family. According to a study conducted in 2009 by the Pew Research Center, 18% of Americans say that they have seen a ghost. The following stories are shared by people who have experienced similar paranormal phenomena. But before we continue, remember to click that subscribe button if darkness and mystery are right up your alley. From late 2003 to summer 2005, my husband and I lived in a haunted apartment in the Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago. When we first moved to this apartment, I often felt like I was being watched and sometimes felt uneasy. But I was young and a senior in college, so I blamed the feelings on stress and the layout of the apartment. At the time, I did not believe in the paranormal. I'm the sort that has to see something myself before I believe it, and once I do see it, I analyze it endlessly. I went to bed one night, but as usual couldn't fall asleep quickly. After a while, I sat up in bed and looked out the bedroom doorway. I could see the dining room area from bed and hoped I would see my cats so I could call them to me. It was very dark, but not pitch black, so my eyes quickly adjusted. That's when I realized there was a very tall, dark mass just past where the apartment's hallway ended and the dining area started. It was around 7 feet tall and had a rough humanoid shape, but the rest of it kind of faded off below its waist area. I wasn't alarmed at first. If anything, I leaned forward to try and get a better look because I absolutely couldn't believe my eyes. I was baffled. But when I leaned forward and gawked at this thing, it seemed to turn and look at me. When it did, I noticed its 2 red eyes. I didn't see any other features except for these bright red eyes that almost appeared to be glowing against the darkness that filled the apartment. When it looked at me, my amazement quickly turned into a deep, primal fear. It swooped through the bedroom doorway and started moving towards me. I did the only thing I could think of, and like a child hiding from the boogeyman, I ducked under the covers. I've been in some scary situations before, but that particular time the fear I felt was almost unearthly. It reminded me of the intense fear you feel when you realize the monster in your nightmare has spotted you. After several moments, I began to run out of air beneath the covers, so I decided to elbow my sleeping husband in the ribs hard enough to irritate him and make him wake up, or sit up, or roll over, just do something. It worked, and when he didn't react strangely, I figured the thing was gone. And it was. I, and later my husband, saw the shadow again, but it never appeared remotely as threatening. Altogether, we saw the spirit there 3 times. It took me years to come to terms with this experience. The closest explanation I could come up with was sleep paralysis. But other than the apparition looking similar to some of the hallucinations reporting during sleep paralysis, there were no other similarities. I had yet to fall asleep at the point when I saw it, and I was able to move freely. The fact that my husband later saw a black mass during waking hours also helped me come to the conclusion that what I experienced wasn't due to sleep paralysis. I sent a message to the property management company asking if anyone has ever reported anything related to a haunting or the paranormal, because I had a hunch that the spirit moved throughout the whole building versus staying in my apartment. I fully expected either a no or no response from them. But to my surprise, the guy responding said he would check in with people in the office and get back to me. A couple of days later, he said that he's actually been told that they were aware of the situation, but they haven't had any reports of strange activity in a few years. My mother claims to have been haunted by the spirit of an old man for several decades. She says that he stands next to her bed at night, silently screaming. His mouth agape, his face contorted, but no sound coming out. She said that sometimes he disappears for months, and others he shows up 3 or 4 times a week. She told me he was around when I was a kid, but she never mentioned him to me or my sister until we were grown up and moved out, so we wouldn't be afraid. It appears he also followed us on a 300-mile move to another state, but it took him 1.5 years, like a dog who got lost in an interstate rest stop. My Catholic stepdad used to laugh when she mentioned the ghost, but about 10 years ago he stopped making fun of my mom, claiming he had also seen him. I have a distinct memory of going home from college and waking up in the middle of the night, needing to use the bathroom. For a split second as I swung out of bed, I remember seeing a scrawny old man with a hairstyle that resembled Dr. Brown from Back to the Future, with his mouth wide open like he was screaming at the top of his lungs, except it was completely silent. I sprang out right where he was standing, moving before my eyes even fully opened, and he was gone. I haven't spent many nights at my folks' house since then, and never saw anything else. But sometimes I wonder if the ghost finally decided after 19 years I was old enough to haunt. When I was a missionary in Chile some years ago, I lived in a small town in a little house with a few other sister missionaries. The weird thing about this house was that at 3 a.m. every single night the air would change. It felt like something was terribly wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. The only way I've been able to verbalize it is spiritual nausea, like severe motion sickness, but not in my body, rather in my heart. But that wasn't the only thing. We would constantly hear a child's running footsteps and laughter in the hall. There were no children living with us. In the early hours of the morning, if any of us left our rooms, the overwhelming nauseating feeling would become 10 times more intense. At first I thought I was having stress dreams, but then I learned everyone experienced the same thing. We thought it might be our imaginations, but how could all of us imagine the same thing? We decided not to tell the next group of missionaries about the weird happenings, because we would have sounded completely insane. However, they asked about them anyway after being awakened by little girls' laughter. Strange things happened that night too. One missionary said that she felt thin, disembodied hands touching her back while she was lying in bed. I started experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a tall, antlered figure staring at me at the foot of my bed. And children's toys started mysteriously appearing in the hallway. We occasionally started finding dead animals scattered all across our yards as well. Whether it was a carbon monoxide problem or an actual haunting, I have no idea, but it was distracting us from sleep enough to make us useless during the day. House blessings and prayers did nothing. Eventually we were authorized to change apartments and the event stopped. I don't think whatever it was meant any real harm, but I do think it desperately wanted to be noticed. Thank you for listening to these stories. They really put into perspective how little we may know about our own reality and what lies beyond. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye, Darklings.